Hey everybody. All right, so we're going to talk today about being an engaging facilitator. We step into quite a few companies that give us the opportunity to help facilitate a large company meeting or a sales meeting, an executive meeting where you have some high expectations or are trying to get a certain kind of outcome out of your meeting. And we've participated in a few of those recently with some interesting feedback. So I thought it might be a good idea to put this out there for any managers who find themselves looking to get a different kind of outcome or a different kind of result from their own meetings that they're facilitating. And the other piece to this is if you are looking to hire a training company or a facilitation company, what kind of things should you be looking for from your facilitators? If you're looking for a company similar to ours, we have lots of videos you can jump on and see what our trainers look like and how we engage with our team, both virtually and in person. Other companies that you would be training with should be able to offer you a similar product. So I found recently in some other research I was doing for kind of training that we do in high schools that runs alongside of our business training, a quote from Socrates. And before anybody thinks that I'm a very a big history buff, I'm not. I tripped on this and just really loved it. And it talked about how Socrates, while he was teaching his students, had to oftentimes teach his students to think of on their own, to come to their own conclusions, as he couldn't teach him what he didn't accept himself. And I thought that was really intriguing because I think as facilitators, we very often aren't sure where a meeting is going to go or what's going to come of it. Very often, because we are a third party coming in to facilitate a meeting, we really don't know where a meeting is going to go. And so we are fortunate enough to be in a room where we're not sure and that it's more of an open forum. And we get the best out of people like that. So if we are unlike Socrates and we are expecting people to do and give us answers that are predetermined, it becomes more like a second grade math class rather than adults. And I think we all know we would rather be treated like adults. So let's jump in. I'm going to make two lists for you here today. Maybe one that talks a little bit about the things that we want to create in a meeting and things that we don't want to create in a meeting. So I think the first thing that we have to keep in mind, we hear this kind of like a buzzword, is that we're looking to facilitate a meeting. We don't want to slip into what I just referenced to as this second grade teach at mode, but to keep our engagement high. A good facilitator can read the group. And I think by that we're looking to connect with the people in the room, because engagement will allow them to continue to be interested. So I think the first thing that we're going to write up here is connection. And for those of you who have been facilitators for a long time, we usually use icebreakers or round robins, all kinds of things. In a virtual environment, that looks a little bit different, and we've all been tested on our facilitation skills through this. But I think that our team, along with many others, have really been pushed out of our box, which is some of the best things that can happen to us, and have been able to incorporate some great, maybe even games, for lack of a better word, to keep people engaged and ask them to really stay involved. Thank goodness we have video conferencing, not so much conference calls, because we all know how the pandemic would have gone with just conference calls. I think that once we get people sharing and using their experiences, that's when we're going to start to get a level of comfort so that they can share their true experience. So not only do we want connection, but we also want comfort. And we're not talking about touchy-feely, but just that what they say can be heard. Maybe it's not what the final decision will be, but it will be heard. A key to any meeting, obviously, is realistic expectations. So based on the collaboration and where participants are comfortable, that's where we're going to see ego and status level off. I think that when we level off ego and status, then we see a more accurate sharing level of sharing. So I'm going to put ego over here. What we're trying to do is keep ego out of the room, meaning we don't want to see people pulling rank. We want to be able to free flow ideas. We want to facilitate debate. And when we have the ability to allow comfortable, patient conversation, that's when we're going to see ego. And maybe even if we go as far as add status here, then we'll see a little bit better facilitation, and we'll continue talking about this a little bit more. As facilitators, we have to remain unbiased. So this is another big one. I'm going to add unbiased over here. So this can be a little bit harder when we're trying to steer the conversation, especially as managers, as teachers in a curriculum. We feel this kind of pressure when we've got a big curriculum to cover in a short amount of time. When the agenda's full in your sales meeting or in your executive meeting, however, to be able to hold a trusting conversation and to allow people to be open to share, it's best to be able to have an unbiased conversation. The feedback that a group gives you allows you to remain relevant to that specific group. So let me give you just a little bit of a sidebar here. So when you take a workshop or a class with us, whether we're on a curriculum or not, we typically go around the room. We ask people to introduce themselves. Usually I have some corny question for you to answer to kind of personalize the situation. And then we start an agenda on the far side of the board of things that you're hoping to achieve for the day. And this works great for your sales meetings as well, because somebody could have something that needs attention. Let's say they have a product question. They have a concern that's going to be brought up or something. And before you know it, a couple of people in the room need that added to the agenda. There's lots of meeting rules, depending on if you follow a certain form or a certain theory in your company that says maybe how that should have been added. However, sometimes that being too strict doesn't allow more pressure items to be dealt with in the correct space. And then once we can see this list, it gives me as the facilitator the ability to take a quick look at this list, knowing where my curriculum is, and mesh all of those into where we're at today. And this is real world, what's going on and what's weighing on the shoulders and on the heads of our current participants. The curriculum that we're going to cover, or the agenda of your meeting, it's a theory. It's what we're hoping to cover. Is it important? Absolutely. This is where we're meeting where our people are at. This is what's pressing on our people. On an extreme, we could have a spouse that's just been diagnosed with a horrible illness, or someone who has passed away, and maybe there's a grief situation in our group that we need to address and let this group just decompress. It may have nothing to do with the curriculum, and we may be able to still go back to the curriculum, but if that's what's weighing on the weight of this group, or there's been an accident, or there's something, that is what's weighing on our group. And if we don't go back and we don't make a connection, we don't make people comfortable in the group, we're so disconnected that whatever we have to say is not going to resonate with the group that we're actually in. We have to make sure that what we're creating in a room is not what I call artificial harmony. And I want to write this over here. Artificial harmony is kind of that moment where, you know, your little kids or maybe even your teenagers are kind of rolling their eyes going, yeah, mom, whatever you think, mom, yeah, mom, okay, whatever, just to end the conversation, to end the meeting, to force yourself through the agenda, to force you through the curriculum so that they can just move on to the next thing. We are all craving a level of community that maybe we are unaccustomed to, especially where we're at right now. And so it would be a disservice to the people that we have brought into this room, right? We've all seen the coffee mug that says, I've survived another meeting that could have been an email. These people brought themselves together for class, a meeting, training, however that looks in your world, and have given their time, now warrant their attention, and do not create an artificial harmony where they're just agreeing to pass through the time. Diffusing conversations. This is always a great one for facilitators. I guess I will write diffusing over here. One of the things that I think scares a lot of facilitators is when we let a conversation organically grow. We let people talk amongst themselves. We ask a question and we allow the time for feedback, or what are other people's thoughts, things like that. And as a facilitator, we get nervous, right? We're not sure what the next thing that's going to be said. We're not sure if it's going to go in an area that we didn't prep for. We're not sure what's going to go in an area that might create some kind of conflict or anything that we're unsure of. I always call it the pregnant pause, right? We're waiting. We need to be able to be patient enough to wait and let it kind of simmer in the room till somebody says, you know what, I disagree with you, or I agree with you, however that looks. So we attempt as facilitators to diffuse too early. So it almost could go over on this side as well, that we're trying to not do, but we're diffusing too early. We want to make everyone feel good about themselves. This item right here is why we teach conflict resolution here at Oxygen. We bring your executive team and your managers specifically in, and we teach them to let your people conflict. Our experience tells us that conflicting situations is where you get the most growth. You get the most honesty out of people, because that's when they're ready to tell you, I know what's messed up. I know what the problem is here. Free thinking, I am a wise enough employee. I was a good hire and I know what the problem is, but I have to be confident enough that there is no retribution, and I will then tell you what is wrong, and we together will move forward and fix it, and I will be a better employee, we will be a better team, we will be a better organization because of it. So facilitators have to be cautious that they're not diffusing too early. This right here takes buckets, and I mean big 10-gallon buckets of active listening. I'm actually going to put a green star here just so that we know. This can kind of go either way, but just so that we know. And active listening is where we can paraphrase, parrot, sum up anything that engages the speaker and the listener to make sure that they've clarified exactly what they heard. So we're not diffusing too early. We're active listening. We're allowing that to get gritty, yucky, all those details that we actually need. And then the next thing is going to be our timing. And this is two things. A, this is respectful of the timing that we said the meeting was going to take, or the training, or whatever. And the next piece is how we're pacing the meeting. And the agenda, my pretend agenda that I said we would build over here, is great because it allows us to kind of pace how long we're going to spend on each topic and when we need to move along. If we kind of measured the room initially and only 2 or 3 things popped up here and we're in this meeting for 2 or 3 hours, we've got some time to spend. If this is a 20 item list and we've got a 1-hour meeting, we're hustling, or we're going to have to go back and pick just a couple and know that we're going to have to reconvene. So again, that timing is super important. I think that timing also is important for, when to sit in that kind of pregnant pause. When are you gonna be able to joke with people? What does it look like? What is going to fit the room the best for you to keep people engaged, keep them off their cell phones, and keep the room giving you back what you're hoping you give to it? All right, so what does all of this mean in the end? If you're looking for a trainer, one of the things that we have found, like I mentioned, is that being in a virtual environment, just like you're watching these videos versus being in person, is different, but it doesn't have to be. One of the things that we like to tell people when we're in a virtual environment is, give your computer a hug. We want to see your face. Also getting up, getting out of your chair, doing some different items that keep you wanting to be engaged in your phone, laptop, whatever your device looks like. Make sure that your trainers or your managers, if you have managers underneath you, are good facilitators. Finding facilitation training and practicing is not difficult to do or find. And if you have managers underneath you, it's important that you are making sure your managers are engaging. Your managers are personable enough and can get in there and get nitty gritty and get dirty so that they are getting the information they need to report back to you in your well-facilitated meeting. And if you can't do it, it's time to call for an oxygen coach. Virtual meetings don't mean boring meetings. In fact, sometimes we like to do virtual meetings more than we like in-person meetings because it gives us an opportunity to put more than one coach in the room and let you have a chat box, let you have an in-person trainer, let you have some PowerPoints. And it kind of goes back to all of the learning modalities that we teach in terms of visual, kinesthetic, auditory, and get all of your touchy-feely modes going depending on what type of learner you are. So I hope that hearing the word meeting or hearing the word training doesn't make you cringe. And if you're struggling finding a trainer or getting your meetings to the type of results that you need, I hope you reach out. We'd be happy to hear from you. You can catch us on oxygencoachinggroup.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and I think that might be all of them, but one of our coaches will jump right back at you. And in the meantime, I hope you take just a little bit of time today to breathe life in. Have a great day, everybody.